You get one from their trust division, one from their commercial banking division, and
I like banana laffy tab.
now this is one we probably ought to think. Did you get one of these?
That's all you should say?
That's one. It doesn't matter to you. So it's all counted. Pretty neat to go to. That's been a big deal. This is one of the things we've been wanting to get done for years and years and years here.
Yeah, it was, I went on that train ride.
Oh yeah.
Across the bridge, so they were building a bridge to build the railroad bridge.
I don't understand it. I do not understand it. Hey, I see your signature on here. Are you ready, Betty? All right, we'll call the commission order. Do we have any minutes or reports? All right. Thank you. Any commissioner committee liaison reports or announcements of upcoming meetings and or events?
Matthew Flats Business Association meeting today at noon.
Is that today?
Yep.
It's a good group of people out there. All right, well, it seems like it's a short, not a lot going on this week. Glad to see that. Okay.
Parks Committee next week, Tuesday.
First item on the agenda is bid award 2013-48 Type 3 Chevy ambulance.
We received 2 bids for this. Taylor Made Ambulance was $113,640. And then Emergency Services Supply, aka Osage Ambulances, was $128,980. Taylor Made is the lower bid of the two. Our EMS director has concern over the quality.
Move that closer to you. Could be a foot away. You can eat the microphone if you want.
Our EMS director has concern over the quality. The digging that I've done, I agree with that. We consider the lowest and best bid to be from Osage Ambulance, and that is to whom we make the recommendation.
Okay. I entertain a motion to award the. We're doing 1 or 2? 2.
It was for 1 with an optional 2, so however.
Do we want to go ahead and do 2 and get it done? I think that's what we had
Yeah.
all discussed. Okay. So I entertain a motion to award the bid to
Emergency Services.
Emergency Services Supply for 2 Type 3 Chevy ambulances.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Bid is awarded.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming in, John.
Have those next week.
Tomorrow, actually, yeah. Sitting outside.
Now, Mike, those are our last 2, right?
Those are
That brings the entire fleet up to have been replaced in the last 5 years, right?
That's correct. Just to give you a brief update, 5-year mark will be July of 2014. We have had the fleet of 10 will be entirely replaced within about 4 5/8 roughly years. Then, as we have talked about previously, we can consider and talk about segueing to the arena side of that, and that's discussion, of course, for later. But that is it in a nutshell. We have had the entire fleet replaced in that period of time.
That was one of the purposes when we took it over, was we wanted to make sure we upgraded and modernized it. So thank you for spearheading that. Appreciate it, Mike.
Very well. Thank you.
And John, thanks for your product. We appreciate it. It's nice to have somebody that makes them here in the local community, too.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is delivery of the auditor's budget. Jim? I don't have one. It's not been delivered to me. Thank you.
Whatever you want. This mic does work better.
Anybody else need one?
Any questions?
Nope. We got lots to do anyway. I see you have comments, though, with your yellow tabs. So.
I should be done by 11. What time? I am happy to present the 2014 recommended budget to the commission.
Sorry.
let me say that the budget document, the format and all that is driven largely by law, but also by the fact that we publish a CAFR at the end of the year, a comprehensive annual financial report. And because we're required to report certain information in that CAFR, including a budget to actual analysis, then we have to prepare the budget along those lines. And so the budget is prepared not only according to statute, but according to guidelines by the Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA. So it contains a little more than what the law requires. The whole purpose is of budgeting and reporting is fiscal or financial accountability. And so at the end of the year, when you take the CAFR, you ought to be able to look at what we did and then take the budget documents and look at what we said we were going to do. And if we're put close, then we were, and the documents are supposed to show what we're accountable for. And fiscal accountability means we're primarily accountable for the money we take in from the citizens and how we spend it. And so that's basically what this document is going to show. The procedures, if you look on page 1, about the fifth paragraph down, it outlines the procedures that we must follow according to the statutes, and you can look at those. On page Roman number 2, a very important part, I think, is the assumptions that were made in putting the budget together. And these include, how the economy will grow, how our local economy is expected to grow, and what's happening to our expenses, what we think will happen, by the way. These are not so much forecasts as they are projections, depending on what conditions actually happen. So then on page Roman number 4, at the bottom, are highlights of the budget. We will have slightly over $61 million available to spend. We're not going to spend all that. In fact, the next line, we're going to spend we propose or recommend spending about $47 million. And we'll get into some detail of that later on. About $17 million of that will be infrastructure projects, roads and bridges and so on. About $14 million will be for public safety, including law enforcement activities. And then we are recommending a salary adjustment of approximately 3%. That probably will be split, or we're recommending it'll be split among a COLA and a merit and a longevity adjustment. And in addition to that, we're recommending that the county continue to cover the health insurance costs, which is proposed to increase about 20% this year, I think.
Well, it was 1.20%.
Has it gotten worse?
Yes, it's 30%.
Oh,
We're full of good news here, Jim.
yeah. Okay, now,
The raise.
That's your president looking out for you.
let me go to Roman number 6, page 6, kind of lay out the scheme of these tables. The first, table 1 shows the budget for the county as a whole, all $61 million, and it compares it to the budget last year. And then as we go through these, where these tables are going to first then break it down by, we're required to we're accountable for the money we take in. So we're going to show in some of these where we got the money, and then some of these tables will show how we spent it. And then we get all done, we'll show what happened to our reserves at the end of what we think will happen at the end of the year. So table 1 is a summary of the budget for the county as a whole, and it shows that we will, during the year, we'll probably take in about $40 million from activities during the year. About 25 million of that will be some kind of tax, mostly sales tax. We have a good chunk of our revenue in the form of license and fees and so on. And then we, at this point, expect to carry forward about $21 million. That, of course, we have a whole quarter to go, so that can change up or down to affect that. And that's where we get the $61 million of money that is available to spend, although we probably won't spend all that. Note that we have to separate out transfers down there of about $6 million or so, because that's in order to avoid double counting those revenues. The revenue, for example, the sales tax transfer is included in the sales tax figure up above, so we wouldn't want to count it again. But on the other hand, it did come in. We're just showing that it did come in. It is part of that $16 million, transferred among funds. The Table 1 also shows the resources that we're going to use, employ to achieve those results. And we're going to spend until almost $47 million. We propose to spend that anyhow. And so that's a deficit of about a little over $6 million. However, most of that, as we'll show later on, is explained by the deficit that's always normal in the capital improvement fund, where we have a timing situation with scheduling projects. It's not uncommon to get the revenue in one year and spend it in the next year. And since we budget on a cash basis, those usually don't match. So, but it will drop that reserve from 21 million down to 14 million. Notice that the county is essentially a labor-intensive organization. Most of our money, about 27% of it, is spent on personnel services, and then a lot of it, 7 million or so, on supplies. Capital outlays are treated as expenditures in the budget, but when you see the financial report at the end of the year, they'll indicate how that money was spent, what it was spent on equipment or trucks or roads and bridges or what. Now, if you go to Table 2, which is on page Roman number 9, it shows the budget by fund, and at least by what we call major fund. The general fund is always a major fund, but the other funds are major funds if they account for 10% or more of the total revenue of the county. And there are actually 5 of those, but one of them, the Neighborhood Improvement District, we don't show because it has no bearing on the financial activities of the county. It's a major fund because we're responsible for the debt of that fund if it defaults. But it's not shown here. It's included in the other funds. That table is designed to show how that $61 million breaks down by major fund, and most of it will come in through the general fund. That is, general fund will have the most to spend. I think most of it does come in through the general fund, but the law enforcement fund and the EMS fund are major funds, of course, as we say here, and take in a lot of money. It shows that how the resources that we'll use to achieve those results by fund, and the general fund is, of course, labor intensive more than the others because of the support services that the general fund provides for the other funds. On the next Table 3, Roman number 10, this is showing essentially the same thing, but by year, or kind of a historical picture of how the money will be spent or the resources that we'll use to achieve our results. And Trying to compare 2013 annualized, what we think 2013 will come in at the end of the year compared to the budget. And that's a little tough to do because we have to do our numbers based on activity through September in order to have it ready for November. So there's a long way to go, and that could change substantially. But we do think there would be, it looks like a significant increase in the budget from about 34 million to 46 million, but a lot of that is because the fourth quarter could change those numbers quite a bit. If you look at tables 4 on Roman number 12, shows essentially the same thing, but now we're showing it by function, by program. And these are the programs that the county is required by law to perform in order to provide the services that the citizens of the county need. And most of our money will be spent on infrastructure. A lot of it, if you're on that expenditure on highways, streets, and bridges increases because, as I say, of the timing factor involved. So, but that's generally how the programs we're going to function or finance through the year. The next table is a summary of the general fund activities. Again, it's a historical, trying to show a historical trend, but you're only getting 2 years to do that, so it's not really a good picture. And it shows how the general fund, the programs the general fund attempts to finance during the coming year. The law enforcement fund on the next page, Roman number 14, is one of those major funds, and it is a program that is included in that first table that I mentioned, and it's intended to show where it gets its money and the resources that it employs to achieve those results. Again, they're shown on a historical basis as well. We think we're proposing a slight, I think it's a slight deficit, operating deficit in 2014 for that fund, but it has adequate reserves, as you can tell. Its ending reserves is almost $4 million, and that's about half of its operating revenue of about $8 million. The next page, the Emergency Medical Service Fund, also is a major fund. That table 7 is a combined statement. We account for the EMS tax in one fund and the expenditure of the activity in another fund. And there's two different budgets later on in the document. But we report them as a single fund, and we consolidate those, report them at the end of the year. And so this is intended to show how the combined activity of those two funds will shake out. It's in pretty good shape. It gets most of its money actually from fees, because although it shows about $4 million, $5.4 million in taxes, about 3 something of that will be transferred to the general fund to offset the tax rollback situation. So most of that, about 50-50 on fees and tax revenue. It has a good reserve, we project a good reserve of about $2.3 million at the end of the year. It's also a labor-intensive business, has about 3 of the, rounds up about $5-6 million will be spent on personal services. Finally, Table 8 shows how we expect to wind up when all the dust settles. And most of the funds, all of them have very good reserves. That's one of the main objectives of budgeting, has been to make sure we have adequate reserves in case we would run into some kind of emergency and have to dip into our reserves. Fortunately, we haven't had to do that for a while, but But if we do, we could weather a fairly good storm. And I'm happy to say that because of our reserve situation, we were able to weather that recession situation pretty well. And that's one of the reasons we're recommending a pay adjustment, a personnel salary adjustment, is that we think our people have performed very well in meeting those situations. We also, last 2 years, our actual results have shown a surplus where we budgeted a deficit, and I think that's a credit to the financial integrity and responsibility of the people who actually have to spend the money. So we think we can afford that salary adjustment, and to sort of demonstrate that, the general fund will wind up. There's a couple of measures of prudence, what reserves are prudent. The GFOA, as I noted up above, recommends about 10 to 15% fund balance to operating revenue, and fund balance is a reserve, by the way. And as you can see, we're in good shape all across the board. The sales tax fund, I mentioned that it's a problem because the expenditures there, if you notice, about $12 million compared to revenue of about $7 million. But they have reserves carrying forward of about $5 million. And so what will happen is they'll spend that reserve in 14, and then their reserve will drop down to about $480,000. But that fund is fairly easy to manage. We don't worry too much about the adequacy of reserves there, because we can always slow down a project or cancel one or whatever we would enter in. The other funds, general fund, law enforcement fund, and so on, they're not so easy to manage, and we have to keep adequate reserves in there. That's about it, Jim. The rest of it is the detailed budgets there's about 30 different budgets that we put together. They're all shown in the remainder of the document, and they're recommended, and we hope that it's been a help to the county commission. That's it.
All right, thank you very much for submitting it. Chris, do you have any questions?
I'd just like for you to touch on one thing, Jim, that I noticed. You had early on in the early portions, it said that you had indicated a 3% increase in revenue growth, and I'm just curious as to where you're seeing that 3% in the economy growing by 3%.
Let's look at table 1 and see.
Yeah, it was basically local economic indicators, Roman numeral 2. It looks like maybe the state is budgeting for you're saying an increase of about 3%, and I just.
Well, which table are you looking at?
I'm not looking at a table, Jim. I'm just looking at Roman numeral 2, basically the very, very bottom paragraph. So, in there you say the Missouri state budget for 2014 projects modest growth. So you're about a 3% increase, and you had kind of touched on that a little bit.
What the state is projecting?
Well, and are you looking at projecting growth there as well, or?
Not that 3%, no. Because most of that's just to indicate that sort of which direction the train is moving, and we're one of those cars on that train.
Sure.
It is going to pull us in that direction. It's going to be a positive force if they achieve that. But since most of our revenue comes from sales tax, we don't see any growth in the sales tax for 14. I think it'll be flat. Essentially the same.
That was my question. I didn't know if that was an indicator of what you were projecting as far as any growth. So.
No, operating revenue we think will go up about on table 1 from a budget point of view. Now the actual, we don't know what that's going to be yet, but from last year's budget we think it'll go up about I think it's about 1.6 million that we think, and most of that I think is in fees. Yeah, but we'll go up close to 2 million,
Okay.
We have, as you know, a bunch of fees, so I'm not sure which ones are going up. I'd have to dig a little deep, but that's where we're going to get most of our increase in revenue. Our grants has been a concern, and notice that they're projected again to go down. And that's what we think is happening is these federal grants that terminate but are not being renewed. And so that's going to continue to probably be a shrinking source of revenue in the future. But we don't see a lot of growth in revenue. That translates, 1.6 I think translates into about less than 1% growth, I think.
Okay. That's all I had.
I got one real quick question, Jim. You talked about the increase in compensation. I'm at the bottom of page 4.
Bottom of page 4.
Roman numeral 4, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What's the real dollar amount
For
that you
salary
factored in for salary adjustment, and what's the real dollar amount that you factored in for the insurance cost?
I'd have to look, but if you look at table table 2, I think,
Okay.
it would be about 3%, a little less than 3% of that 18 million.
Yeah, personal services includes.
Benefits.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to figure out what we're talking about. It looks like what you're projecting is based upon what we budgeted this year to what you're proposing for next year, about a $500,000 increase in personal services. And I'm curious to know how much of that $500,000 is the 3% pay raise, and how much, excuse me, how much of that $500,000 is insurance increase.
Good question. I'm going to have to not guess, but estimate here. Our fringe benefits our payroll costs run about 25%,
It's close to 30.
close to 30. So 30% off of that would be about, you're down to about 13 million. And then 3% of that would be about
390,000.
a little less than 500,000 that you talk.
Okay. Because our increased insurance cost is 460,000. Yeah, that's what it's actually going to be.
Well,
460.
We
Just the
estimated
insurance.
20% of that, and she's saying it's going to be more like 30%.
Yeah,
That's
it's
a
going to be a
third
much
more.
Yeah,
Than what that's be.
and it takes up a bigger percentage. Okay. That was my only question. Jim, good work. We really appreciate you putting this together. We have budget hearings scheduled for,
21st.
Next week.
gosh, next week, really? Holy cow.
You're looking forward to it, huh?
21st.
You know, I try to stay in a state of denial about budget hearings as long as I possibly can. Can you have Melody resend that to me? Because somehow it's gone off my phone. I would schedule stuff on that day if
Oh, you cannot.
the whole day is wide open. I don't get many days that are wide open the whole day.
And I'll remind you guys, we do start at 8 that morning, and the sheriff is coming, and I know you guys wanted to maybe exchange, if you could come around 8:30, and maybe we can fit you in, Larry, to that.
I don't know that I need 60 seconds. So I'd like to go first if possible.
That's
I mean, I really don't have any.
I think we're having a little training first before we get started, so. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
John said I could have 35.
Oh, 35 seconds?
It's be up to a minute, so let's make a deal.
Well, likewise, Mark, we may shorten your day. I don't anticipate asking for anything other than what's in here. You want?
well, and that's the one thing I would, people that want to come and make presentations. If there are changes, and I mean, I'm just now senior, so I don't know what you've got in your line. I mean, if you're proposing a change from last year to this year that's anything different than salary adjust, then we probably need to have you at least come and explain it. If there's not a change from last year to this year, except for, the COLA and things like that, then there's no reason to.
I'll come down in case by that time you may have a question that you
Okay.
don't ever do. I don't want you to think.
We can do quick and easy. You know that, Jim. Unless we're not quick and easy.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you again, Jim. We appreciate it. Do we need to show officially that it's been received in the minutes? Will you make sure the minutes? Yeah. 2 days early.
2 days or?
All right. Next item on the agenda is care leave committee recommendation.
The Care Leave Committee met yesterday morning, and the Care Leave Committee is asking the Commission to approve a 122 hours for November for the same employee that we have previously been seeking care leave hours for. This would leave that employee with a 10-hour balance for December. After that 10 hours would be used, she would have used up all of the available care leave time for her.
Okay.
Is that the recommendation of the Care Leave Committee?
That's the recommendation of the Care Leave Committee.
You need a
122
motion and a
hours
second?
for the month of November.
Yes. I entertain a motion to approve the recommendation.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carries. Recommendation's approved. Thanks,
Thank
Larry.
you very much.
Thanks, Larry.
9/11 agreement addendum. Oh, I'm just looking at what's on the agenda here. I just read what's in front of me. Is that a Jill thing? Hey, get out of the candy jar. Jeff's not here.
Take the whole jar.
Something leaked?
Goodness.
Those are the best ones. I don't eat them, but they are the best ones. That's the only kind I like too. I'd be if I was eating them, I'd be doing the same thing. Oh, I love
That's right.
banana taffy. It's
Keep telling you, go down to Prager, be sure to make the problem. She's got a big, huge thing. Look at that.
I don't eat it. I'd stay away from it. It's bad for me.
Yeah, see, I'm gonna pull up now.
All right. Well, while we're waiting for Jill, how about child support state contracts? Hi, Holly. Is this the annual contract renewal?
It's going to go every 2 years now.
Oh, really?
Sorry, Dennis.
Oh, we already jumped ahead. You got to wait now.
Okay.
Sorry.
You only have to sign one set, and where I've got the tabs are where you sign.
Where it says presiding commissioner.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So this is a contract for services for child support enforcement for 2 years.
It's going to go for 2 years.
January 1, 2014 to December 31, 2016. How much is it this time?
How much is what?
Didn't it go up a little bit? The amount that we're getting?
Actually, it went down 3,000.
Oh, it did?
But we have agreed that when Cheryl Wright left, that we are not replacing it as all the rest of us took on extra duties.
Okay.
So
So there's a net savings.
yeah, basically it saves, but we get more work. So
Lucky, yeah.
to do per person. The major changes in that, it looks different. You notice it looks different, and you're only signing one
Yeah.
set of them. Okay, the major changes are there's 3 kind of counties that do child support. A, B, and C. We're a C county, so anything in there that talks about A or B county does not pertain to it. They just put it all in one big contract, so everybody has the same contract.
Okay.
The part that's about sharing the resources if we go over budget is still in there, the percentages. But now the Callaway takes a percentage of it too.
Where's that at?
That is, I can tell you the amounts, I don't know where it's at.
Oh.
It's 48, Callaway's 28, Gasconad's 10, Osage is 9, and Mary's is 6. but we, it's covered for next year anyway. I have their, did you see the letter I gave you, the approved budget that they approved for next year? There it is,
Yes.
which is just 3,000 less than this year. And
Okay.
then subtracted the staff person off of there.
You
And
look
for
at this?
some reason, if they don't give us the same amount, you can always cancel out with 60 days notice. That's
Okay.
it. And they still, the most important thing for me is the paragraph that says that we still have prosecutorial discretion. They just try to, they can't, but we have to remind them that we have discretion to do what is right and not what they think is right sometimes. But those are the big changes. Then you only have to sign one contract, and they let us send it back in by scans now too. So
Oh, wow.
they've gone paperless.
Technology never ceases to amaze me. And they'll take it
Well, they're in the
paperless and then
process
print
of
them.
it.
Then
They're
they'll
in the
print out
process
6
of it.
copies of them, and
Yeah, I know, yeah, everybody, they used to want everybody's original signature on the same contracts, which was a pain to try to run around and catch all the commissioners in the small counties to get them to sign them, but, so it's just one.
okay. Do you want to take a little time and look through it, Chris? Or?
Just a couple of questions. So this is just money coming in to reimburse us for the program, I assume?
Right, after I submit them, I try to do them every single month as soon as I get all my figures in from Ms. Mausner, and when I see our expenses out, I take that in and I send it in to the state, and then they send the money back to the treasurer.
So you're basically processing claims for,
The claims, yes, I do the claims myself.
okay.
One way to ensure they're hopefully done right. And right now, we still are getting some money in excess of what our, with the indirect costs.
Oh, good.
We are still getting some money. And one reason of that is that we have the money from where Cheryl left. I was surprised they gave me that amount this year, but that wasn't the area that they decided to whack.
You need a half part-time or something for your staff then? Or is, you could be able to continue to manage it with the existing?
Well, we're gonna talk about that next week, about people having extra responsibilities and doing the same amount of pay. I'd like to reward some people for their extra work.
I'm okay
I
with
got a
this.
couple people that are working very hard.
If,
If they leave me, I'm gonna
just
be,
philosophically,
I'm gonna be
I'm just going to tell you philosophically where I'm at on that, just so you know in advance. People that work hard don't deserve extra pay, because that's what they're supposed to do. People that take on extra responsibilities deserve extra pay, because that changes what their job is. So, for example, if your job is to prepare letters, I'm just making something up, and you just get really good at preparing letters, and instead of preparing 1,000, you prepare 2,000, that's not extra pay. That may go to a merit component if we do merit. That's not extra pay. If your job's preparing letters, and now your job's preparing letters and writing contracts, that's a different job. That's what changes the pay structure. That's just where I come from. Just because, I mean,
So in other words, since I'm having to do more secretarial work now,
yeah, I don't know. That's the other side. That's the general philosophy on salary and pay is just because somebody's working harder. I mean, doesn't entitle. I mean, they make overtime. If they have to work overtime, they make overtime because they're non-exempt. And then there's a merit component that we have done historically when we. But the only way we actually change salaries in the structure is if it's change of duties or change of title. So, I mean, I just don't know there's a way around that. Otherwise, everybody would come in and say, well, we're working harder. And we don't have budget resources to make everybody. And that's a policy we try to do across the board. Because you have a different pot of money makes it harder. I mean, it makes a better case for you to say I can fund it. It doesn't change the bottom line. But everybody else will be saying, well, you did it for them. Why not do it for us? We're working just as hard, too. It puts us in a very difficult situation budget-wise. And that means everybody gets pay raises, theoretically. Big ones. Because you're not talking about $100 a year. So that's just something to be cognizant of.
I've got people working when they shouldn't really, they're working sometimes through their lunch.
That's overtime, and they should be getting compensated for that. And in fact, if they're not writing it down as overtime, the county is liable. Yeah, I mean, they have to. If they work during lunch, they have to record that as working hours. They don't have a choice. And if that's not enforced, we're in trouble. I'm not aware that that's happening. If that is happening and it's not being recorded, that needs to be addressed immediately. There's not even a way to write that one off. I mean, that's just the way the law is. Sorry.
Sign that.
One other thing, the indirect cost study, we do need to have that done this year. 'Cause
I
we
need-
skipped it last year.
I need to check on them and make sure, but I'll make sure. That he does that in the spring, right?
Yeah, well, I just want to budget for it, so I want to make sure that we budget for 2014.
Well, we can always budget for it and then not spend it.
Yeah, we can't, I just took it out this year.
But I mean, I'm saying, we can always budget for it and not spend it.
Yeah. I'll check with and make sure is when I think we'll have to do
I'll
on
get
that.
it, according to them.
Yeah. Spend 1,000 to make 15. So.
Well, the whole study is about 7,000 or 8,000.
Yeah. All right. I entertain a motion to approve the contract with the Department of Social Services for 4D county reimbursement.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Mark?
Yes.
And Chris?
Yes.
By roll call vote, the motion's approved. Contract signed and executed. Holly, thanks for what you do. I mean, I think Cole County does the best job of this anybody in the state, and that's because you've kind of adopted this solely and entirely on your own.
See, I'm doing accounting work too.
Keep trying.
Did you get all 4 pages?
I signed 4 times.
Okay. I tried to make it as easy as possible.
I like the green tabs. Those are good. Thank you very much, Holly. Appreciate
Holly.
it. 911 addendum.
All this simply does, and this was the sheriff's idea, 2 originals, is say that if they have to move it to another site for whatever emergency reason, they have to provide the same services that they provide currently at the police headquarters. So in other words,
Got to be able to operate on the MoSwin network.
absolutely,
It doesn't say that.
Well, it says same services, doesn't it? Mark?
that is currently provided.
I don't.
Allows for the same
Well, I don't know what the-
services previously delivered.
Does the
from-
911 contract say MoSwin?
No. Well, the 911 contract.
It does not say
says-
MoSwin, does it?
No,
So
but-
they're under no obligation remember, it's only under the contract.
Well, okay, here's how that works in the regular 911 contract, is they have to deliver services that would be operable with whatever you're on.
We're sure about this?
I mean, the way it's written, it's not explicit with the word MoSwin.
If they say, look, you can just work off of channel 2, I'm making it up. Okay? That's not MoSwin. And that's sufficient.
Not under the current 911 contract.
It specifically says they have to make 911 work on our primary system,
It does
not just work, period.
It does not specifically state that. I think it's,
Because I know this MoSwin issue is a potential issue.
well, they have MoSwin now, so.
They do? I thought they were not using it.
They have, they have the capability, I think they have 4 radios now that are MoSwin capable, as well as, I think the, IRV, I think is MoSwin capable now. I know that the Westfield office is MoSwin capable now. So I think they're moving towards strides on doing the MoSwin.
Okay. You're okay with this?
The boss is okay.
Okay. Fine with me. I don't care. I'm just trying to make sure we don't have another issue because we've sat here and had these issues before on radios. So.
Mark, this isn't going to change it. If they don't have to deliver on MoSwin, they can make the same argument from the original.
That's what I'm saying. So we're amending the contract. We should maybe amend it and make sure that it says the right stuff in it.
Well, I mean,
But we can always amend a later date.
and
Or
I
they
think
can
the
refuse
way
to amend it at a later
I
date.
think the way the current contract is written, they have to provide services, and if they can't put it on the same communication channel or whatever the word is to accommodate the sheriff's office, then they are not delivering the services for the 400,000 or whatever it is we give them a year.
Okay. All right, I entertain a
Does that
motion to
make
approve the
sense?
addendum.
And that's, yeah, so moved.
Second.
Um,
Go ahead.
this affects EMS too, though, right?
The paragraph, the current service, the same service, I think the encompassing word of the same current service they have now includes most wind. It's not definitively line item in there, but it does embrace currently what they do now, and most wind is a part of that, to include our side of the fence as well. So it's broad term, but it is very encompassing of what they do now. We would,
Well, the fact of the matter is, they're providing that service right now.
Okay.
They're providing the most wind service right now.
All right. A motion second.
And you guys are still having your 911 meetings,
We've had one.
and you have another one scheduled, or?
Yes, there's one, I can't remember, December 10th or something, I don't remember
Okay.
when it is.
I think as long as we're communicating, I don't have a problem with this, but as long as if we're not communicating, then more of this becomes an issue, I think.
Communication is always the answer.
I'm sure.
That's why we're having a joint communications contract addendum right there. Call roll, please.
Mark?
Yes.
And Chris?
Yes.
By roll call vote, contract addendum, is approved. There you go. Sorry, Marvin's got to sign off on that. Accounts payable review.
I actually had one check, I forgot that it was the postage for the, paying for, the mailing out the taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Now Larry's covered that. I'd like to now still pay him that for his.
So this is a manual, or is this just the regular accounts
No,
payable
it's
run?
just the main. Or we can skip it, I thought I was actually gonna.
Just stick it in the next accounts payable run. I hate doing these special checks. You know, Larry's not here, but
It was only to pay the bank. I didn't
I
know.
know. But he knew 9 months ago that he was going to have to write a check for postage at some point.
I agree. So,
In fact, how many years has he been collector? He has to do it every year. I hate this emergency thing when people know it's coming in the future. You know,
He's kicking in.
I'm just not willing to do it. Okay. Wait.
yep.
Okay, put
Nope,
it in a regular
next
accounts
week.
payable like it always is.
Emergency on someone else's part is not an emergency on mine. There you go.
Maybe don't put that over your door. Do not put that over the door.
Don't put that on the back of the ambulance.
I received the request for the sponsorship for Salute to America. Thanks, Chris, for trying to shake us down for some more money.
Oh, sure.
Do we want to co-sponsor Taste of Jeff City as we've done every year? We include that in our budget anyway. It's $1,000. We go in with the city, the school district, Lincoln University, Lynn State, and they're going to add the
It's the welcoming back of the legislators.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. Yeah.
All right. I'll let Misty know that we're good for that.
That was Salute to America, and 1,000.
No, that's Taste of Jefferson City. Salute to America is just the document that I gave.
Just a request.
Just a request. We go through our normal budget process on it. All right. Anything else, Greg?
They were here to do your inspection this morning. Should hope to have the results back either Friday or Monday.
You're talking about the basement of. Okay. Chris?
What about the in-sync grease traps? Have you got anything on that?
Waiting on bids back for that.
Okay.
As soon as I get the bids back, I will let you know.
Okay.
Wish called me yesterday, wanted to know if I had presented it to you guys, and I said I had, and then you told me good bids on it, so.
Okay. Good enough?
Christy, do you have something?
Can I ask while I'm here about the fees for the sanitary reimbursement?
Got to use microphones. You'll learn to hate these things. Trust me, we all are.
I noticed that the revenue projections are greatly increased for sanitary reimbursement. So were the fees approved by the commission?
don't know that we actually approved them. That's Jim's budget, but
Okay,
I
that
don't
was my
have any.
question.
I don't have any objection to the revised fees.
I
I
was
mean,
under
I
the
thought we had
impression-
reached a point where we were good with them. I just don't know that we ever voted to approve them.
So on the on-site wastewater, is
It
that
was on all inspections.
Restaurant inspections,
Okay.
all that stuff.
did we not approve
I
those?
don't think we actually voted to approve
Okay.
them.
We said that we were okay with it, but
Maybe we just need to vote to approve them.
I thought you did. If they did, that's great. I was.
I'd entertain a motion to approve them if we haven't already.
This is my, would you know,
You know, we got time on the budget. But maybe a better option.
yeah,
is
let's
go back and check.
let's
talk,
wait.
and maybe Debbie can run through the minutes real quick and see, or Betty can, and see if we actually have approved them by minutes. Because I knew we said we were okay with them, but I don't
Yeah.
recall if we voted them or not.
Yeah, I just before
I think it was
before
just
I'd vote to
disconnect
approve them,
signs.
I'd just like to see what they are again. If we were okay with them, I know we kind of revised those a couple times.
Clinic was approved. It's the sanitary.
yeah,
It's
and that
these.
came after, because there wasn't discussion right after that. They went back and then they came back.
Yeah, we just need to confirm whether they're approved or not. If they weren't, put it on the agenda and we'll just take it up.
Great, thank you.
That's good. Good catch. Need to get that done before the budget year. Thanks, Christy.
Thank you.
Mike,
Good to go. Thank you very much.
John?
Reporting to you.
Debbie.
The only thing I got a question about DevNet, are you guys okay with me paying that next bill after Larry's email? Or do I need to pull that out of accounts payable? for the next-
I'm okay with paying DevNet because I don't believe what the issue is a DevNet issue. I think the issue is a county assessor issue, which, you know, as my wife said, there's a expression they use called picnic. Problem in chair, not in computer.
Oh, can we get that put on his seat? Oh goodness.
Feel free to use that. Just make sure my wife gets some credit for it at some point.
No.
Heard the same thing, but it was a different.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you see, that's because you guys have different more colorful ways of saying things that don't go over well in the human resources arena.
Not good. Whenever you first said it, you were going to repeat. I got a little scared.
Yeah, I'm with Mark. I don't think it's a DevNet problem. I think it's an issue that we have to somehow remedy in house.
And I have not made a payment to Intrinsic Corp for quite some time.
Well, what time's the assessor making his budget presentation? I rest my case. Thank you. In which case, my view is if an independent elected official chooses not to show up for their budget hearing, they default to whatever we choose to do.
$2.15.
Whatever we choose to do. All right. Anything else, Debbie?
Do you have a form on that they suggested or an email you can pull?
I'll shoot you an email.
All right.
They usually just send us an invoice.
Yeah, they do.
It's all of $1,000. Anything else? Going once, going twice. I entertain a motion to stand in recess.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We will stand in recess. Thank you all very much. Get a little light reading for you there.
Yeah.
What?
Health and Junior done, parking lot.
Oh, they are. They worked out good.
That stuff stays so bad.
That's why I had a headache on that Sunday.
We were outside and I was like, oh, but it looks nice.
It did look good.
Yeah.
Which one did you say we're going to have to redo entirely?
Probably, I talked to,
You said health department was beyond.
yeah, I talked to,
And all the copies of everybody.
God, can't even think of his name now. I've known him since high school.
Anyway.
Anyways, he said, we put it on extra heavy.
Okay.
The sealer
You think
on
it'll
it.
work?
He said we'll probably get another 2 years out. I was hoping we'd have another